There's an old literary trick. Put something dangerous right in the middle of paradise and pretend it's off limits. Don't touch the stove. Don't open the box. Don't eat the fruit. And whatever you do, don't ask why. The Bible doesn't begin with murder, war, or miracles. It begins with bait. A tree no one asked for, a rule without explanation, and a punishment that reshaped humanity forever. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. They don't die. What actually happens? They eat, they see, they know, and then exile. Not for violence, not for betrayal, for curiosity, for daring to ask the only question that mattered. This isn't just about disobedience. It's about knowledge, and whether your gods ever wanted you to have it. Hi there, I'm Dave, and I've been a language and literature educator for over a decade now. I'm here to do a deep dive with you into religious stories, examining them through a literary lens. Welcome to the Literal Apostate. Genesis doesn't explain motives. It sets a moral trap. It gives us a serpent, a tree, a woman, a man, and then waits for curiosity to do its work. But before we analyze deeper, let's revisit exactly what happened. God commands explicitly, "You shall not eat from this tree." No explanation, no rationale, just a threat. Enter the serpent asking, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree?" Eve clarifies, "Just this one tree, the tree of knowing good and evil." The serpent reframes the threat as an opportunity. You won't die, you'll become like gods, knowing good from evil. There's the dramatic irony. We, the audience, know more than the characters. Adam and Eve have no concept of moral knowledge or divine rivalry. They're innocent. She doesn't even know what disobedience is, like a child learning boundaries for the first time. And that sets us up for something crucial: how humans learn morality at all. Because before we can judge Eve's choice, we need to understand what moral development actually looks like. Ever wonder why some people think "because I said so" is a moral argument? Meet Lawrence Kohlberg. Kohlberg argued that moral reasoning develops in stages, like a video game where most people never leave the tutorial. Stage 1, obedience and punishment. At this stage, morality equals avoiding punishment. Don't hit your brother because you'll get grounded. Or, in Eden, don't eat the fruit or you'll die. Stage 2, individualism and exchange. Here, it's moral if it benefits you. I'll help you with homework if you let me copy yours next week. Level 2, we get into conventional morality. At stage 3, we have good interpersonal relationships. Morality is being a good boy or a good girl to win approval. Think middle school cliques or Pharisees performing piety for the crowd. Stage 4, maintaining social order. Law and order. Obey because society would collapse otherwise. This is, I pay my taxes so roads exist, but also I enforce segregation because it was the law. Level 3, we get into post-conventional morality. Stage 5 is a social contract and individual rights. Rules are social contracts meant to maximize fairness. If a rule is unjust, it should be challenged. Think civil rights activists questioning Jim Crow laws. Stage 6, universal ethical principles. The highest stage. Morality guided by internal ethical principles, even against laws or majority opinion. Think Gandhi. Think MLK. Think refusing to obey genocide orders under authoritarian rule. So where does Genesis place Adam and Eve? Squarely at stage 1, obedience out of fear. Don't eat or die. No moral reasoning, no nuance, just command and punishment. Higher moral reasoning isn't celebrated in this story, it's punished. Questioning isn't growth, it's rebellion. And rebellion, in this framework, isn't moral maturity, it's sin. So the next time someone tells you, because the Bible says so, ask yourself, what stage of moral development is that argument appealing to? And who benefits when you stay there? Why do gods fear humans gaining knowledge? Genesis isn't alone. Every culture grapples with this question. Let's explore these stories because how a society frames knowledge reveals what it truly fears and what it hopes for. Consider Prometheus. He steals fire, symbolic of knowledge, from the gods and gives it to humanity. For this crime, Zeus chains him to a rock for eternity, his liver eaten daily by an eagle. His sin wasn't theft, it was empowerment beyond divine intent. Pandora's story mirrors Eve's. Given a box forbidden to open, her curiosity releases suffering into the world, but also hope. Unlike Genesis, the Greeks show that knowledge, while dangerous, carries potential for redemption. In Genesis, there is no hope in the punishment, only exile and obedience. Pandora leaves humanity at least one gift. Eve is left with only shame. Odin sacrifices his eye at Mimir's well for wisdom. Knowledge here isn't forbidden, it demands sacrifice. In Norse cosmology, wisdom carries risk, but is worthy of pursuit. Unlike Eden, where seeking knowledge is sin, Norse myth elevates the seeker. Even gods must sacrifice to become wise. Siddhartha Gautama sits beneath the Bodhi tree, seeking enlightenment. Here, knowledge isn't hidden by gods, but obscured by ignorance. His awakening challenges oppressive systems, freeing not just himself, but others. While Genesis frames enlightenment as transgression, Buddhism frames it as moral responsibility. Indigenous cultures celebrate trickster figures like Raven or Coyote, beings who obtain knowledge through cunning and redistribute it to humanity. Their actions destabilize, but also empower. Eve's curiosity brands her a sinner. Raven's cunning makes him a culture hero. Where Genesis sees rebellion, these stories see progress. Thoth, god of writing and wisdom, steals secret knowledge from Ra to grant humanity language and record keeping. Egyptian myth embraces knowledge as divine gift, even if stolen. While Genesis punishes knowledge, Egypt sanctifies it. Even stolen wisdom elevates humanity's potential. Each of these myths shows knowledge as power, disruptive, dangerous, but transformative. The Eden story alone frames knowledge as unforgivable rebellion, leaving only punishment in its wake. So ask yourself, if every culture tells us knowledge is worth the price, why does this one warn you away from it? Who benefits if you stay ignorant? And would you take the fruit? The moment they eat, their eyes were opened. But open to what exactly? And what did that new vision cost them? Instantly, they see themselves differently. Nakedness becomes shame. What was once innocence now carries moral weight. Their first impulse isn't celebration, it's hiding. And this shame sets the stage for everything that comes next. Punishment. Let's break these down carefully, because they're more than just curses. They're blueprints for society. First, Adam is condemned to endless toil. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat from it. Work isn't framed as dignity, it's framed as punishment. Eve's punishment is harsher. I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Pain, subordination, gender hierarchy set in divine stone. Finally, the serpent. On your belly you shall go, dust you shall eat, condemned to crawl forever. The bringer of wisdom is cursed into humiliation and eternal enmity. These aren't random. They reinforce hierarchy. Nature, subjected to man. Woman, subjected to man. Humanity, subjected to God. Eve's curiosity is punished severely, not just as her personal consequence, but as a template for gender oppression across centuries. Obey your husband. Suffer in silence. This was theology weaponized into social order. Adam's punishment frames labor as penance. Hard work isn't noble, it's punishment for disobedience. This theology justifies oppressive labor systems, from feudalism to corporate grind culture today. And the serpent, wisdom itself, is demonized. Questioning authority becomes synonymous with evil. The lesson? Stay in your place. Don't ask. Don't challenge. Remember Kohlberg. Morality rooted in fear of punishment isn't moral maturity. Eden's story doesn't teach moral growth. It teaches moral stagnation. So next time someone calls Eden a paradise lost, ask yourself, lost for whom? Because for the gods, obedience is paradise. For everyone else, it's just another cage. Pretending this is just a story. Who actually gains when morality is reduced to obedience? When obedience itself is framed as virtue, questioning becomes sin. Systems don't fear evil, they fear defiance. Because if defiance is evil, then morality becomes submission. Remember Kohlberg. Literalism keeps believers trapped at stage 1 or 2. Obedience from fear or transactional loyalty. Higher moral stages demand reason, empathy, and justice over mere rule following. And that's dangerous to any authority built on fear alone. Genesis has justified power structures for millennia. Medieval kings claimed a divine right to rule. Popes invoked Eve's punishment to cement patriarchy. Colonial missionaries used Eden's fall to frame indigenous cultures as sinful children needing conquest and conversion. Slaveholders cited Genesis to enforce racial hierarchies and exploitation. Today, literal interpretations fuel Christian nationalism. They shape purity culture, where female autonomy is still policed by Eve's punishment. They shape prosperity gospel, where labor and obedience are reframed as godliness and reward. Why do these structures prefer moral obedience over moral reasoning? Because critical thinkers are dangerous to power. Blind obedience is efficient, loyal, predictable. When leaders celebrate ignorance, they're not praising humility, they're securing compliance. And here's the irony. The serpent, called the deceiver, told the truth. Eat and you will know. God, warning of immediate death, offered fear, not moral clarity. Literalism treats moral awakening as rebellion. Literary reading reveals it as growth, because a morally mature populace can't be ruled by fear alone. So ask yourself, who benefits when your morality never rises beyond stage 1? Who profits when questioning is rebranded as sin? That's why reading these texts literarily matters. You stop asking how to obey and start asking whether obedience is even moral at all. Knowledge will cost you everything, but ignorance will cost you yourself. The serpent wasn't tempting them with evil. He was offering liberation, moral adulthood. The deity wasn't protecting them from danger. He was protecting authority from questions. Apostasy isn't just rebellion. It's that moment you stand up and see the world for what it is and decide your morality can't be handed down. It has to be chosen. The Eden story isn't about humanity's fall. It's about humanity's rise into moral self-awareness. Its tragedy isn't disobedience. It's the punishment imposed by an authority that feared human growth. Remember, an apostate isn't just a heretic. It's an escaped slave, and there is no shame in running toward the truth. Next episode, we leave the garden and step into a field soaked in blood. The first sacrifice, the first murder, and the myth that teaches us competition before compassion. Cain, Abel, and the dangerous theology of scarcity. Because if Eden was a cage for your mind, Cain and Abel built cages for your neighbors.